Hello, good morning, y'all. Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday. I'm usually live on Wednesday. We are digging into connections to clients day 3. Excited to dig in today. I can't believe we're on day 3 already. I don't know where it goes by so quickly. I feel like you plan these things and then they come and then they just go by so quickly. So excited to talk with you all today. For those of you who are hopping on live, when you do say hello, let me know you're here. Remember, for all of you who are live, I'm going to enter your names into a drawing, and one of you will get a free 60-minute coaching session. So today we're going to talk all about creating better connections, new connections offline. My kitten just walked in. She's feeling very hyper. So we might, I keep threatening that we're going to have Anala, my kitten, join us. We might have her join us today. Today we're going to talk about those connections offline, but just as a quick recap for those of you who might be joining in today, who have missed a few days. Day 1, we talked all about the power of connection, why connection is so important in our business, why those relationships are so important. I'll recap that study I told you from the Harvard Business Review that talked about how if we have emotional connections with our clients, those emotional connections are worth 2 times the amount of revenue over that lifetime of that customer relationship compared to that relationship we have with a satisfied customer. And this, to me, and I said this yesterday and I'm going to keep saying it, I think it illustrates the power of connection so much, because we're talking about the difference between someone who's already satisfied and those deeper emotional connections. And I think that just really speaks to the power of relationship and connection. On day 1, we also dug into creating connections on social media without content. And I love content, but I think it was fun for me to talk about some of these ways we can create connections without that content. The replay for day 1 did not save, so we're having an encore presentation tomorrow where I will hop on live again and we will dig back into day's 1's material for those of you who missed it. So if you missed it, don't stress, we'll do that tomorrow. Yesterday we talked all about creating connections through email, better connections through email, without funnels, without opt-ins. And so that replay is live. If you missed it, be sure to catch up on that. Today, we're going to talk again about those relationships offline. We're taking our business offline for a moment. And some of what we talked about yesterday will come into play here. Let me pull up my notes before we dig in just to make sure I got what I want to talk about here. So what we're digging into today, I don't think, again, any of this is rocket science. This is all pretty simple. My intention with what we're talking about today, with what we've been talking about over the last 3 days, is really to leave you with some very simple, actionable strategies so that everyone can go out, make some better connections, make some new connections, and create new clients, create new opportunities in their business. I'm all for all the other strategies. I love strategy in business, but I think sometimes we forget how simple things can be and how much is available to us at all times. And because we forget that, or because we don't know about it, we're not taking action on those very simple things that can move our business forward, that can create clients for us. Or, and this is something I think we talked about yesterday, maybe we're kind of doing some of these things, but we're not doing them from a place of intention. And maybe we're just missing a few key elements that would help us bring it to the next level so that we are creating clients. I find a lot of times with my clients, it's often that we're not reinventing the wheel. A lot of times it's a little tiny shift in their strategy, a little tiny shift in the way, little tweak in the way that they're showing up that can create massive results. I had a client not too long ago, in their second month, they hit a income revenue, what's it called, high. They hit the highest they've ever made in their business in the second month we were working together. And it was from these little tiny things we were tweaking in their strategy and the way they were showing up that created those results. Because I think with that, yes, we're making those strategic shifts, but we're also being more intentional with how we're showing up. When we're more intentional, when we're thinking about these opportunities from that headspace, we're actually tapping into a part of our brain. I swear I'm not going to geek out about the brain today, but we are tapping into a part of our brain that's actually filtering for and looking for opportunities. This is where manifesting comes in. And so it means that these things that maybe we've heard about, we're doing them in a different way, which means we're creating different opportunities. We're noticing things maybe we didn't before. So that's why all of this. I also, just before the holidays, I think a lot of times we think there's not a lot we can really do. We don't have time to create a new training or to create a bunch of new content. We want to be with our family and friends. And so everything we've been talking about here, you can implement over the holidays, particularly what we're going to dig into today. So today, going to keep this short and sweet, hopefully. Sometimes I talk a little too long, but we're going to keep this relatively short and sweet. And these are all things that you can really do over the holidays so that you're creating those connections in a way that's a little more intentional, a little more strategic to create more clients, more opportunities in your business. So getting offline, creating connections offline. I don't know about you, but when I started my business online, so I've always been someone who likes to, you guys, I don't know what my kitten is doing. She's like climbing the wall over there. Anyway, I don't know about you, but when I started my business online, suddenly it felt like the offline world disappeared, and I became, the very start, so mired in online strategy, business strategy, that I forgot about the world outside my doorstep, about the world I already knew, about my peers, about those connections there, and some of the ways, some of the potential clients and opportunities right in front of my face. And I think I made things harder on myself. And I see this a lot with my clients as well. And I think it's so easy when we get online to neglect the world offline. I think sometimes we do this out of fear because there's a screen between us online. Sometimes it's easier to share our work online. All right, hold on, y'all. Hey, Nala, you want to say hi? Because you are being a little crazy. You guys, we're having a cameo from Miss Nala. Say hi. Say hi to the world, Nala. This is my little crazy cat right there down there. I love you, sweet girl. All right, this is what happens when you go live. You have kittens who go through your live stream. What were we talking about? I think sometimes it's easier to show up online at the start because it can be a little less scary. We don't have that immediate rejection. We're not having a conversation in the same way that we are online. I think sometimes we can use it as an excuse not to have to show up offline or not to have to talk about our work offline. And yet, when we make connections in real life, we connect with people so much faster, so much quicker. We connect in such a deeper, more authentic way because we don't have the screen between us. And I know you guys have experienced this. I mean, the whole point of online is an incredible tool for us. Social media is an incredible tool. We're making connections. We're trying to mimic what happens offline. We're trying to reach a wider pool of people, but nothing compares to what it's like when we connect with people in real life. So today we're going to talk about, I have 4 ways that I think we can all show up offline and connect more with a little more intention. What I want to do today, particularly around these offline strategies, is to talk about things that don't include teaching workshops, that don't include being a part of a mastermind, that don't include going to events or hosting events, that don't include buying tickets to go to different things. I love all of those. I think those are great strategies. Those are great ways to meet new people. But again, I want to keep this as simple as possible. I want the barrier to entry for all of you to take action on these ideas to be 0, so that you can go out today and take action on these. All of those are great, great strategies, but they take a lot more effort. They take a lot more thought. So that is where I'm coming from. Let me take a sip of my coffee and then we'll dig into these. Okay, so in your playbook, if you have that, that's going to help you today with particularly the first idea here that I have for you, but it's also going to help you with some of these other ideas. So if you want to pull that out, just so you know why I'm asking these questions, that might be helpful for you. But the first, let me see my notes because I know otherwise I'll forget things that I want to share with you. The first thought for you here is to start practicing the idea of connecting with people everywhere you go, and to get into the habit of once per day, leaving your home if you work from home, or if you're still in your 9 to 5 and you're working in your 9 to 5 while you're building your business, practice connecting with someone new, practice deepening a connection with someone, and if possible, practice talking about the work you do in a very natural way. So this is particularly great for all of us with the holidays because most of us are probably going to see friends and family that we haven't seen in a while, or we're going to be at parties, or we're going to be in environments maybe that we aren't usually, and people always ask about our work and what we're doing. What I find happens for a lot of us, and oh my gosh, I did this at the start of my business, I used to do this when I was acting as well, is we tend to do one of 2 things when we meet people and the talk about our work comes up. We tend to either shrink back and get really weird, and we want to not talk about it, or we apologize for it, or we over-explain it, or we talk about what we really want to do is this, and we get like super weird about talking about our work. Anyone else been there? Give me a heck yes if you have been there. So that's one thing that will happen. The other thing that'll happen is some of us in the online space, we've learned all about how to speak about our work and about our message and how important our message is, which I fully subscribe to. And we'll take this message we've created that lives on our website and we'll regurgitate it. It's our elevator pitch. And it hits a wall and it doesn't connect because the way we talk about our business through our messaging online or maybe on our website is very different. Often, hopefully not that different, but it's different than how we communicate with people. And a lot of times we're speaking to people who maybe don't know about our work, who aren't in our industry, and so they don't understand some of the terms and phrases we're using. And so there can be a huge disconnect, and then we hear crickets, and then we get super self-conscious, and the conversation ends. So today I want to not only encourage you, we're going to talk about some ways to connect with people, how to find those people, but first and foremost, I really, and this is in your playbook, I really want to invite everyone to start thinking about your work, what it is you do, and how you can talk about it in a way that's really simplified so that other people can understand what it is you do. And so this is different than an elevator pitch. Let's get any coffee today, you guys. I think I'm having a little bit of allergies today. My eyes are very itchy. I didn't know you could get allergies in the winter. Anyway, side note. So we want to think about how to talk about our work when we're meeting people, when we're meeting or when we're talking to our friends. Quite honestly, the people we already know, we're making stronger connections so that we can create opportunities, but also when we're meeting new people. I can't tell you how many times I have one of my best friends, this just happened, who I talk to multiple times a week, 3 to 5 times a week. And it came up recently that she doesn't actually understand what it is I do. And it was such a great reminder to me of how often we don't talk about what it is we do with the people who already know us and want to connect us to opportunities, and how complicated we can make it when we're explaining what we do to people. So in your playbook, there's space to write out 3 to 5 sentences to describe the work you do, to talk about the work you do. And what I want to invite you to do is to think about who it is you work with, the problem you solve, and the gain, the benefits, not the benefits and results that you deliver for people, and to think about them in simplified layman's terms, and then to look at those phrases and to truncate them, to make them shorter. So when you meet someone, you can just throw out a little snippet instead of this long 30-second elevator pitch, because none of us are trapping people in elevators and trying to cram in what it is we do with someone. The whole elevator pitch, I get it, but it's kind of weird and antiquated. That's not how we communicate in real life. In real life, we have a conversation. It's an ebb and flow. It's a back and forth. Someone asks you what you do, you tell them a little bit. They say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Or I have a question about that. Or I know someone who could use that. And then you have a conversation back and forth. And so naturally, you get to talk more about your work. This is also how naturally the other person starts to think about, oh, this is something I could use. Or, oh, I know someone who could use your service or product, versus shoving this prefixed long weird sentence at someone. That's what throws up a wall, because it's not that natural conversation connection. Let me know if this is making sense with y'all. Let me know if this is connecting and if you understand what I mean here. So really, really, truly, this is something, if you don't do anything else in the playbook, I would invite you to do, and then I would invite you to practice saying them out loud. So y'all know I'm an ex-actress, and this is what you would do when you would get new material. You would rehearse it, and you would rehearse it not so that it would come out in a certain way. You would rehearse things not so that you knew exactly what you were doing. The idea when you rehearse material is to learn it and integrate it so it becomes a part of you, so that you can then throw it away, so that when you're acting in a scene, you're not thinking about it, and each time you can respond and react to the person in front of you naturally. And that material that you've learned, those lines that you've learned, will come out in a different way based on that person you're in front of and what they're giving you. It's the same thing here. If we can learn how to talk about our way and integrate it into us where we're not thinking about it anymore, we're actually in a different part of our brain. We're no longer in that part of our brain that's overthinking, trying to plan, trying to figure out how to do it right. It just naturally will come out in a way that's going to match that person in front of you. Hopefully that makes sense. I really would invite you to spend some time in your playbook. Think about this, think about it from, is this something that if someone doesn't understand my industry, if someone doesn't know what my industry is, would they understand what I do? And then how can I practice this enough so that I don't have to think about it, so that it just naturally flows out of me? Again, let me know if that is making sense. Because what we want to do with this, and this is going back to this first strategies, we want to think about, yes, when we're home with our family and friends over the holidays, talking about the work we do and not shrinking back, not playing small, not apologizing for the work we do. I think when I was acting, it took me a few years to own that I was an actress and to confidently say that. We want to confidently say this from the start, because if we don't buy into the work we do, if we aren't confident about the work we do, we can't expect other people to buy into it or to want to refer people to us or to want to pay us money for what we do. So that's first and foremost. But in terms of making new connections offline, this is something that I find can be really powerful practice, because you will meet new people, you will make new opportunities. It also allows you to practice speaking about your work, and that is to start to think about how once a day, Monday through Friday, how can I get out of my comfort zone? How can I get out of my home and connect with one new person? And so this is maybe easier for me in New York City because I'm walking around more, but I think all of us have somewhere each day that we go where we can connect with another human. If you don't, this is actually, I think, a really great practice to start to think about, where can I go so that I can start connecting with people? We don't want to hole up in our little world. And I know at the start of my business I did. I would just stay at my computer all day long. My boyfriend would come home and I'd still be in my sweatpants. And I wouldn't have talked to another human outside of people I was connecting with online. We want to start to think about, how can I stretch my comfort zone and start connecting with and talking to people outside my front door? Because what you will start to find is there are people everywhere you can connect with. Jennifer was talking about this in day one, how she works at a coffee shop so that she can naturally just start talking to people, and that's built up her network and built up her opportunities. It's the same for us. There's so many places we go to every day where we can just start conversations with people, and that starts to build up our network, and that starts to build up our connections and relationships with people. When we start to do this and make this a habit, it becomes easier and magic happens. Opportunities feel like they fall from the sky. And before any of you hear this and think, well, I'm really introverted, I don't like talking to people, it must be easy for Kim because Kim must just love talking to people, I will say this is something I've really cultivated and practiced over time. My natural state, if I could just do what was natural and easy for me, I like to sit in the corner of a restaurant and face outward and allow people to come to me or not talk to other people. I've learned to really love connecting with people and to move forward. We were talking about that passive and active state where connecting with people over time, because I have learned how powerful it is and how much it can serve me. It served me really well when I was acting, served me really well when I was looking for a new job in New York City. It serves me well now as a business owner. So really want to encourage everyone to step out their comfort zone and once a day find someone new outside your home or inside your home. I'll give you a few ideas if this feels too uncomfortable to connect with and to start a conversation with. And then the challenge is, if you can, find a way to casually slip in the work you do. Because what starts to happen over time is we start to build this network of connections of people who know us, like us, trust us, know what we do. And this is where suddenly someone becomes a client or someone knows a friend who needs your work. And we are just building that network outside of us. I think so often we forget what's right outside our front door. The other fun thing that happens, this is a little silly, but I have found I do this every day now. I challenge myself. I go to pick up dinner a lot for me and my boyfriend. You start to have interesting opportunities that are different than what we're talking about here. I get free food all the time, where you have really interesting conversations. I found out recently that my barista is actually an artist who worked with Andy Warhol, and we had this great conversation. And you start to have conversations like this which turn into real relationships with people. And again, this is what we're talking about, right? Relationship building, and how relationships can then turn into opportunities. Hey, Manisha, nice to have you here. We're talking all about getting outside and it's early for you, getting outside our comfort zone and connecting with people in real life and really finding those opportunities and being intentional with it to connect with people outside our front door, and how this can start to strengthen our relationships and connections. What you will start to find when you do this over and over again, is how these relationships turn into not just great connections and people you know, which will make your life just richer, but also how this starts to turn into opportunities, especially when we're weaving into the conversation what it is we do, which is what we were talking about at the beginning of the live stream, how to talk about this in a way that's a little more natural and throwing that elevator pitch out the window. No elevator pitches, you all, please. So let me know, Manisha, let me know if this is resonating. I know you're kind of coming into it a little bit after the start. What I will say, just in terms of connecting with strangers, if we're outside our comfort zone, if we're outside our home, we're connecting with strangers, and we want to think about how do I start a conversation with someone, because I do want to just let people come to me. And there's a few easy things we can do. Again, this is not my natural comfort zone at all, but it really and truly can be a powerful, plus really wonderful thing that does become comfortable. I now love doing it. So a few easy things if we want to start conversations with new people and start to build those connections with strangers in our community. I think start easy. Start with where it's easy. So start with talking to the barista. Sit at the bar instead of at a table if you're going out to have a meal, and start speaking to the bartender or the person sitting next to you. Like, start where people are already in front of you and coming to you. Jennifer on day one was talking about how she'll have her meetings at a coffee shop so that people hear about it, and she'll start to see people over and over again who work from the coffee shop so that it's easier to have that familiarity and have those conversations. We also want to start thinking about, and put this in the playbook, think about the areas around you that you naturally can go to where there's opportunities to connect with people, as well as those places where your people, your clients might be hanging out in your community. So you can go out of your way to be in a place where you're going to be around like-minded people. So for example, again, we're not talking about spending money. We're not talking about paying for a mastermind or teaching a workshop. But for example, if you're I'm saying yoga teacher because I know that Manisha teaches yoga, but let's say you're a nutritionist, or let's say you do something with health, you might go to your health food store anyway, and now plant into your mind, oh, there's an opportunity to connect with one new person today at the health food store. This might be someone who is naturally going to be aligned with me, with my interests. Or you might go to your gym or your yoga studio anyway. This is something you might already do, and you might now have in your mind, okay, I'm going to challenge myself to talk to one new person, and just to start that first initial contact with a new human, with a new person in front of me. Some easy things to, again, start this conversation that I also like to do. I'm a natural, I love to lift people up and to make people feel good from a very genuine place. And I think this is a great way to start a conversation with someone. I used to find that I naturally just see, when I see people, I see the good or I see something nice about them, and I used to keep it to myself. And now what I will do, because I challenge myself to have one new conversation with a human every day, even if it's the person who is serving me my takeout food, I find giving someone a compliment is a really natural way to start a conversation. It breaks the ice. It makes the other person feel comfortable. Again, we want to be genuine and real here. Don't make stuff up. That's weird. But most of us are naturally seeing that anyway. And if you're not, it's a great way to start training your brain to see the good in other people instead of the bad, and instead of being annoyed by people. It's something where you naturally will see something nice. It lifts people up, and it will naturally start a conversation. Oops, my coffee here. Nala, what are you doing? Another thing that can be a really easy way to start a conversation is just to say, hi, how are you? Especially if you're sitting at a bar and there's someone next to you, or to find something that someone's holding a coffee, or if someone is eating, I love French fries, I'm going to say French fries, but just to make an innocuous conversation, start a conversation, ask a question about something small in front of you. Oh, what coffee did you order? Or what's your favorite coffee here? Or what did you get? Or, oh my gosh, I love this coffee. I'm talking about coffee because I'm drinking it, but you can see how that can be a very easy. Thank you for the hi, Manisha. I know who else has joined. Say hi, because I'm entering your names into a contest for free coaching, you guys. So gotta let me know you're here. But again, just really easy icebreakers. The other thing that can be easy to do, let's say you're going to do something like insert yourself in a co-working space or hang out somewhere where your people are, just because you're going to work anyway and you're going to challenge yourself to talk to someone new. This sounds a little cheesy, but I find if you take the book you're reading, if you happen to be reading a book with you, it's such a great natural conversation starter. Or notice these things in other people. So again, we're not We're not coming in like, hi, my name is Kim and this is what I do for work and will you hire me? We're just naturally having a conversation, noticing, oh, what are you reading? I haven't read that before. Or if you're holding a book, actually can be more passive. Someone will ask you what that is you're reading, or if you're chatting, it's just a natural way to bring the conversation around to something that's very normal and innocuous. And then naturally, it always comes up in conversation, what is it that you do? And naturally, we can talk about what we do. And again, we're going to think, for those of you who are joining in a little late, in the playbook, I invite you to write 3 to 5 sentences, simplified sentences, where you talk about what you do in a way that isn't an elevator pitch, in a way where we're not regurgitating that message we put on our website, because that's not how we talk in real life, in a way that's really simplified so that someone can ask you more questions about it and you can naturally have a conversation. Okay, I'm going on and on about this one today. I think you guys understand this, but I think this is one that, good morning, is it George or Jorge? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correct. I think it's Jorge, but good morning, nice to have you here. So I think this is, again, pretty obvious, but something we're not necessarily being intentional about. And so especially with the holidays, it's such a great time to practice this. My challenge to everyone, not that this is a challenge, but is to start to challenge yourself once a day to have a conversation with someone new, offline, and to just practice having a normal conversation. You don't even have to talk about your work. Bonus points if you do, because that's how we start to build up those connections. We get better at it. That's how we build our network up. Okay, so the next one here that I want to throw at y'all, which is taking this to the next level. This is one of my favorite ways to connect offline. This has served me incredibly well, and this is the coffee meeting. We're on a coffee theme today. It doesn't have to be coffee, it can be tea or some sort of beverage like this, but specifically coffee and not lunch and not drinks, because coffee and tea is something we can do relatively quickly. It's a very low barrier to entry. It's not very threatening. It's people get funny about food, so we don't have to have a meal with someone. It doesn't have to be a long, protracted thing. It doesn't have to be expensive. Alcohol, I love to have a good glass of wine, and I will have wine meetings with people I already know. But when we're meeting someone new, things can get dicey with alcohol. The coffee meeting, I find, is really great for a quadrillion reasons. One of them is the barrier to entry is low. And I think when we're making new connections with people, especially for our business, we want to keep the barrier to entry as easy as possible. I'm always talking about this with clients, those micro commitments, elevating our relationship naturally and making it easy for people to say yes. The coffee meeting's a lot easier to say yes to than a dinner. And think about this, if you were dating someone, it's very different to meet someone for coffee than to go out on a dinner date. It's just a completely different thing. So coffee meetings particularly, I think they're a great way to build those deeper connections with people. Again, we connect with people so differently in real life when we have a conversation than we do when we're just messaging back and forth online or through email. I think particularly for those of you who are wanting to meet with new brands or with companies to do collaborations or with individuals where you maybe work in, I know Manisha does some of her work locally, where you're meeting with people locally, having that coffee meeting is a really great way to very quickly take a relationship to the next level in terms of business. It also sets the tone that you are having a conversation that is a little more formal. So that first step, where we're just talking to strangers to meet someone new and we're building up our network of people in our community, in our neighborhood, that's great. We're building up our network. This is very intentional, where we're going to probably talk about work and we have more of an intention behind it. So the coffee meeting, I think we talked about this yesterday. When I first moved to New York before I started my business, I wanted to get a job in marketing and sales and advertising. I repped directors commercially, and I had no experience in this industry. I had no business getting this job. I was in New York City, which is not exactly a pool of applicants where there's no competition. And I didn't know anyone. I knew 5 people, including my family members, when I moved to New York. So I heard somewhere that you should have coffee meetings, and I took it very seriously. So I used yesterday's strategies with emails to connect with new people, cold emails, or to get connections from people, friends I already had, to then take it to the next level and invite people to coffee meetings. I had 40 coffee meetings with strangers who then became a part of my personal referral network. It was so powerful. And what was really great, we're going to talk about phone meetings after this, but Of those 40, probably had another handful of people who I never met with for coffee where we had a phone conversation, but it was the coffee invitation that led me to those conversations. All of those people connected me to other people. So 40 coffee meetings, it ballooned. It's like you have that item here and you see all the lines that go off. One person we build a strong connection with is connected to their whole network. Suddenly, our network expands exponentially when we're taking the time to do this. So again, these were strangers that I didn't know. These were people that were either referrals from a friend or people that I was reaching out to cold, who I was then, my invitation, my next step was, do you want to meet for coffee? And we would then have a coffee meeting. So let me know if, I know that this one's it's George. Okay. Thank you, George. I will make sure I say that correctly because names are important. We want to get names correct. What I will say with the coffee meeting, and really with everything where we're meeting people, we already know who we're meeting. A few just thoughts here. So first, be bold. Invite a few people. Even if your business is mostly online and you're not connecting with brands, you can connect with peers this way. Challenge yourself to have one coffee meeting a month and see what happens from that. See how far that connection can take you. I did this at the start of my business, and this is where some of the spaces I secured for speaking engagements and workshops came for free, which in New York City, being able to get a space for free is pretty fucking awesome, y'all. But some of them came from taking the time to make a coffee meeting. Be conscious of other people's time. Keep your coffee meeting short. If you invite people to coffee, do your homework and research first. Look them up. Learn a little bit about the person you're going to talk to. Do a little research so that you can ask informed questions about their life. This is where the strategy comes in. This is how we can have a natural conversation that has some strategy behind it. It also, I know when someone's done their research and I did an interview recently with someone and she was asking me such smart questions and I so appreciated her. She was pitching questions to me that showed she had read my blog and website, which made it so much easier for me then to give her the information she needed. So do your homework, make it easy on the person helping you. And then always, if you're inviting someone, treat for the coffee, y'all. Spend the $10 or whatever it is on coffee. So much cheaper than Facebook ads. And again, one person, what is their network worth? It's worth a cup of coffee. Be gracious that way if you're going to take people out for coffee. Even 40 coffee meetings, it was so worth every penny I spent on coffee. And then we want to think, and I think this is the important thing with any time we're making an outreach like this. I'm going to have to let my cat out in a second. She's being a little crazy this morning. The other thing we want to think about anytime we're making an outreach like this is we want to think about what is our next invitation. We always want to have something that we're inviting people to. So this does not have to be working with you, but we want to know what's our intention for the meeting. So when I was looking for that job, my question to them, because they're going to ask, how can I support you? We always want to ask in return, how can I support you? This is a mutually beneficial relationship. So we're always asking this. We want to know our answer to that, not just like, oh, I don't know, help me find a job. When I was doing coffee meetings for a job, mine was, who else do you know who I can speak to? It wasn't, can you find me a job? It was, who else do you know that I could speak to? Do you know anyone that you'd be willing to connect me with? Because that's what I'm doing right here. So some of those 40 coffee meetings came from other coffee meetings where someone would connect me to someone else. Now it might be, if I was meeting someone, I might say, do you know anyone who, I would describe the type of work I'm doing. Or I might say, I have a free Facebook group. I would love to invite you to join that so we can stay in touch. Or I might say, I have this course I created. I'd love to gift it to you so that you can learn more about my work, because it'd be great if we could be a referral source for one another. So many different answers to this question. And I see we have comments here, but we want to think about what is that next invitation. With my clients, I always talk about what's that next micro commitment. So we're bringing the relationship to the next level. We're also making it really easy for people to help us. And we're helping them in return. This is mutually beneficial. If it's a potential client, we want to invite them into what's the next step. We want to know this ahead of time. Don't make it hard on people. Don't make it hard for people to buy from you. Don't make it hard for people to help you. When people sometimes reach out for me for coffee meetings, on the flip side, it frustrates me when they don't make it easy for me to help them. I want to help people, but if I don't know how, I can't do it and I forget. So Manisha says, this is a natural way to connect for me. Had tea with a local acupuncturist, and now we've talked about going for a local hike since this is Oregon and that's what people do. Yes. So for you, maybe instead of a coffee meeting, it's a hike meeting. I used to do this in LA. I would have hike meetings with people, and then wouldn't you know, an audition would come out of it or an agent connection. So I love that that's a natural way for you and that you're sharing these examples. And just think if all of us were a little more intentional with this and did this every month, every week with people, suddenly you're building up your network of people who actually know you. I could go on and on about this, but I think you all get it. So yes, I love the idea of hikes. I will say sometimes I will instead of coffee, when it's someone I know a little better, I will do a workout thing. I will meet someone for a workout, go on a run together. So all great ways to build up that know, like, and trust factor. So again, know, and just this is the other thought I want to say, also know what value you're bringing to the table. So not only do your research for them, but know for yourself what you're bringing to the table in terms of how you can help them as well. Remember, we have to give if we want to get. If we want to get connections from other people, we need to be willing to give that as well. So I think know what the intention of the coffee meeting is, be clear about that so we're not doing a weird bait and switch. And especially if we're using this as a way to expand our network, be willing to give, be willing to offer that so that you can get in return, not in a weird sleazy way, but just in a, that's how it works. Okay, so this next one is really easy. I've got two more for you. The next one's really easy, and then the fourth one's pretty easy, me too. So this fourth way here is to send cards. So this sounds a little duh, but how many people are sending snail mail? This is very old-fashioned. I love getting snail mail, and I send snail mail. My goal is always to send one piece of snail mail to someone a week. What usually ends up happening is I batch these, and I just sent, I think, 10 out the other day. So I end up batching them, but the idea is to do this once a week. My whole thought is connect with people online every day, find one person to connect with offline, send an email to new people, so I'm building that email connection, and then to send a piece of snail mail. Because, and if I'm doing this regularly, and if you're doing this regularly, without having to have a funnel, without having to pay for Facebook ads, you're very naturally building up connections that can really serve you, that are much deeper and more emotional than, it's also what a lot of people aren't willing to do. So with cards as well, I think so many people aren't doing this, and who has not received a card or a piece of mail from someone? Right now, I don't know, most of us, what do we get in the mail? We get bills, maybe we get a magazine, sometimes we get stuff that we order from Amazon. We don't get a lot of cards except outside of Christmas. It feels so good when you get a card from someone. And I will tell you this, the last two people I hired in my business also did this, and one of them did this when I wasn't working with her anymore. I ended up rehiring her. You better believe that part of the reason was I received this card, I kept it on my desk. It had her top of mind for me. It made me think about, like, it just jogged my memory about her. And you better believe as well, when I'm thinking about who I want to refer people to, if someone sent me a card, I get clients sometimes send me cards, or sometimes a friend will, if I put it, I'll put this is one from someone, put them on my bulletin board, they're front of my mind all the time. It means so much more to me. I'm a total emotional person. I'll cry about this stuff sometimes because it means so much to me, but it also keeps them front of mind. So again, we're not doing this to be manipulative, but just to tell you, just show you how the connections to clients comes from having that snail mail. And so with the snail mail, I'm just like, Manisha says, yes, love offering, next specific step. I missed that. I don't see the comments on Facebook all the time. I'm not good at the comments, you guys. Thank you for Manisha for saying that. I think with snail mail, a lot of what we talked about yesterday with the emails in terms of what to write, what to share, you can do the same exact thing with snail mail. I have a client who is building up her coaching roster, and she is sending individual letters to pretty much her whole network of people she previously worked with and knew in a different business. And she's sending out snail mail to all of them to introduce her new business. I so applaud her for the effort, and I think it is so going to pay off in a way that, I mean, it doesn't, online marketing works. I build most of my business through online marketing. I'm not discounting that. But just in terms of utilizing her current network, it's, I think, so smart. And yes, it takes a little more time, and yes, you got to pay for stamps, but I promise that's cheaper than Facebook ads. And I promise I know she will get some results from that. So I think everything we talked about through the emails, whether it's a thank you note, whether it's a keep in touch note, sometimes I will send just thinking of you love notes. I do this for my girlfriends. Sometimes those were what some of them were last week. Or even to companies that you want to work with or have interaction with. I used to do this acting. I used to send postcards to casting directors. This is a strategy you use in acting over and over again with a little note, especially if you met them or not met them, because that's how you get to know people you don't know through snail mail, because people aren't getting that much snail mail. So I don't need to overly complicate that, but I would invite everyone to think about, keep it simple. Send one a month. Send 12 pieces of snail mail next year and see what happens. Or challenge yourself to do 4 a month. Do one a week and see what happens. I don't know what stamps cost and what cards cost, but that's probably less than, I don't know, $5 a month in marketing to make someone feel really good, to light up someone else's day, and to further your business and your connections. Okay, the last connection piece here, the last offline connection. Again, these are all really simple, you guys. I know some of these are a little duh, but my hope and intention is to have you think about all of these so you actually do them. Because sometimes we hear things, hearing and knowing about things is different than actually doing them, and start to think about how can I integrate some of these from a strategic standpoint. So being really intentional about this and doing this from a place of remembering that I am a business, so I'm doing this with my business in mind instead of, I think there's a different way we talk about things when we're coming from that business CEO hat versus friend hat, being really intentional about it and start to create a practice with this, because if we do all of these things regularly, they're easy, they're simple, and we're combining the other ways we're marketing our business, I mean, it's magic. These things can be magic and they feel good. So the last strategy here is to start to integrate connection calls. So this is different than, if you're a coach, this is different than giving a free session. This is different than a consultation. This is actually a call to connect with another human for the pure intention of connection. It depends on what's going on in my life and who I'm connecting with, but I tend to have a few of these a month. I just had one yesterday. It depends on my schedule as well, so I will not say hard and fast I have one of these a week, and quite honestly, sometimes it's outside my bandwidth, but I do try to have a few of these a month, at least one a month. So a lot of times these are people I've connected with online on social media who, and with these are usually more peer connections. This is where I'm building my network of peers or people that can be referral sources or people that I just want to know more online, so that it's becoming a community and not just that shouting match that can sometimes happen. I don't think we want to use a connection call to pitch a client. I think that's a bit of a bait and switch. Not that a connection call can't turn into a client, and has absolutely happened for me in the past, but I think we want to be mindful of being intentional and really upfront when we're connecting with people in any way, what our intention is. And if it is with someone we want to speak to about working together, phrasing it that way and being very clear from the front, because otherwise I've had people reach out for me for connection calls and I realize they're trying to pitch me for work. It feels yucky on the other side. It just does. It doesn't feel good. And that's not our intention here. But connection calls are, it's kind of like the coffee meeting, but on the phone or on a Zoom line. And I think some of you are already doing this, connected with a few people in this group this way, but it's very simply reaching out to someone and saying, you love their work, you love that post they shared, you've seen that it's the same. I've seen you at the coffee shop all the time, I see you online all the time. I think we have a lot in common. Would you like to hop on a 15-minute call and connect? When I was taking those 40 coffee meetings and I was building my network to get that very specific job I wanted, when I would send those cold emails, I would ask people if they'd be open to a 15 or 20-minute coffee. If someone didn't have the time, because people are busy, not everyone has time for a 20-minute coffee. Not everyone wants to meet a stranger who just moved to New York City for a coffee. I'd ask them if they could hop on the phone for 15 or 20 minutes. A lot of times they would offer it in return. And then suddenly, again, you've expanded your network. Now that was different than a connection. That was very much, I was looking for a job, but they knew that going into the phone call. So it's about being clear and intentional when we're connecting with someone and telling them why we want to get on the call. To see if there's any comments hiding here. And so again, with these, I think we want to remember to be intentional, be clear about it, invite people in, make that effort, carve out that 15 minutes in your day a few times a month. And again, with what we were talking about earlier, know what that next step invitation is. So if you want to stay in touch with someone, we don't want to do is have like all these hundreds of people we're connecting with where it's like lost and we never stay in touch with them. Remember, we talked about the power of the follow-up. So having that micro commitment, that next level invitation to bring the relationship to the next level, just like if we meet someone for the first time at the coffee shop or if we're having that coffee meeting. Do you want to invite them to your Facebook group? Do you want to send them a free gift? Do you want to do that connector email and connect them to someone else so that you can refer them? Just think about that ahead of time so that you have a few things in your back pocket so that it doesn't end up being wasted time with just calls you're having with people left and right. So hopefully that makes sense. Or if it's a more intentional meeting with someone because you want to be on their podcast or because they have a platform that you want to see how you could collaborate and work together, be really clear about what that next step is afterwards. I'm going to follow up with you and send you an email with X, Y, and Z, and then do it. I know that sounds overly simple, but so many people don't follow up afterwards. So with all of these, taking that time to send that quick email, or if you know someone in a different way, send a text message, whatever it is, send a DM, but where you're following up. Hey, it was so great to meet you. I loved connecting. I loved our phone call. Here are the next steps. Not in a weird way, but just here's what we talked about, and I'll be in touch. And then go back to our email strategies yesterday. Make a note. Check in with them once in a while. Send them a love note. Send them a note to see how they're doing and ask how you can support them. So again, really simple. None of this is rocket science. None of this anyone needs to have a degree in business for. None of this is anything that you need to spend weeks and weeks prepping. Everything we talked about today, everyone watching now and watching on the replay already is doing and can just be a little more intentional and strategic with, or can start to implement. Let me just see. What I will say is, do I have any last thoughts here? Just in terms of, I think I've given all the tips I wanted. I'm just checking my notes to make sure I didn't leave anything out that I want to share, but I think that's all of those tips there. So just as a recap, those 4 things are: 1, once a day, go out of your way to get out of your home, or if you work outside your home, to speak to someone new or to deepen the connection with someone you already have, and challenge yourself to start mentioning your work casually. Mention the clients you work with so that you can start to have that conversation about the work you do. 2, the coffee meeting. Think about having one of those, or the hiking meeting, or the tea meeting, or the workout meeting. Think about how can you start to integrate these into your business so that you're creating those in real life deeper connections, and what's the intention behind them. The 3rd one there is send some snail mail, send some old-fashioned snail mail. Get creative here. It can be a thank you note. It can be, there's a coach, his name's Mark something. He has a Facebook group. I think his newsletter he sends out, you have to pay for it, but he sends it all out snail mail. Creative. I once in a while will send, this gets expensive, but once in a while for specific people, I'll send them a book instead of a card. Get creative. What can you send in the mail to brighten up someone's day? And then the 4th one, think about how you can start to have some connection calls with people and who might you want to connect with. And if you go into your playbook, there are some specific prompts to think about where are you already going that you can connect with people. Where can you intentionally put yourself to be around your people? So again, for me, that might mean, I don't do this very often because I have client calls, but it might mean going to a co-working space where entrepreneurs are hanging out, or a coffee shop where I know people are hanging out. And then coming up with those 3 to 5 sentences where you can talk about your work this is almost where we want to make it more wide. I'm all about being more narrowed, more general, but in a way that if we meet someone who isn't in our industry, doesn't really know our work, where we can make it a little more accessible for them to understand and ask us questions, again, so we can have that natural conversation instead of throwing that weird elevator, like canned response at people, so weird. But also so that we're practicing actually talking about our work and not doing what so many of us do, which is pulling back, shrinking back, or getting really weird and making excuses about our work, or like, I kind of do this thing, but not really, but I'm not that really good at it, but what I really want to do is this, and what I'm hoping to do is this, so that we can just very confidently and casually talk about what we do. So those are your 4 ways, and just as a recap on some of those tips, be human, look for those icebreakers. You can do some things so that, if you position yourself in a coffee shop with a book and make yourself, there's a big difference between sitting in the corner or sitting more in the center of the place. There's a big difference between having an open presence or being down with earbuds in. There's absolutely things, if you're single, these are things you learn in terms of if you want to meet someone. There's a big difference between being open, where I say I'm open to connect with someone, and closed off if you want to take a more passive approach. If you want to take a more active approach, again, just look for those ways you can connect with someone and start a conversation. I promise you, it feels weird at first. It starts to feel really, really nice. You start to build up a community, and it's really great when you start getting free coffee and free food out of it, as well as when you make business connections and you get clients out of it, and really cool opportunities. A friend recently, she sat next to someone at a bar, started speaking, and she was in Chicago for work, and she ended up getting free tickets to a local music event with like backstage access. It was this whole thing because she did exactly what we're talking about. She talked to the stranger next to her in a normal human way. If you're meeting people, again, for work purposes, where it's very intentional with the coffee meeting, do your homework, do your research, know what value you bring to the table, know how you can support them as well as what you're asking for. Do your research, do your research, do your research. Ask questions, ask more than you talk. So don't do what I'm doing today, which is talking at you. Let me know if you guys have some questions though, for real. But we serve ourselves so much better in these situations when we ask questions and we allow the other person to talk 8 times. I think it's like the 80-20 rule applies to this. So ask more than you speak. They've done studies on this. People will pay money to talk. They're talking about ourselves it's like linked in our brain. It's the same reward centers as receiving money, and I think as sex. So it's not to be manipulative, but truly this is how you can connect with people, is let them talk. So let them talk and have that next level, that next invitation. Have a few of those in your back pocket so you're always inviting people to that next step. And I think that's everything. I think I'm a little off notes today. I think those are all the tips for offline. Again, super simple. Do these over the holidays. You can create some connections. And if we're coming from this intentional place, again, we're tapping into the part of our brain, the reticular activating system, that starts to scan the horizon for opportunities. It's what starts to notice opportunities. So when we're intentionally starting to do this every day, what we're also doing is we're priming our brain to start to notice opportunities, start to notice potential clients, start to notice people who can create connections for us. So it's really also a great way to train our brain for creating more opportunities in our business. All right, so that is everything. I hope, let me know, I don't think I have any other comments. Let me know if this makes sense. Let me know before I hop off if you have any questions. Let me know if this was helpful. I know it's simple, but hopefully simple is helpful for all of you. As we close out, my invitation for everyone is to go back over the last 3 days and think about how can you create your own structure and plan from this so you're implementing all of these simple ways to connect with people on a regular basis, because that's when it starts to compound, and that's when all of a sudden 3 months later you have all of these, it feels like magic pouring from the sky, because you've just done these little things, these little actions that are really easy every day, and they compound and add up over time. Sincerely, and that's when you become my friend I was talking about yesterday, who seems like she's so lucky. She's lucky, I guess, but don't kid yourself. She's doing everything we're talking about here. She's making her own luck. So that's my invitation to you. Tomorrow, for those of you who missed day 1, we'll have a live replay. So we'll go back over day 1. Other than that, that commences our 3 days of connections to clients. So wishing you all a very, very happy holiday. Thank you for hanging out with me. For those of you who are live right now, I think it's George and Manisha. Thank you. I know it's early for at least one of you. So thank you for hanging out and starting off my day this way. And I'll see you in the Facebook group, and just a whole lot of love. And if you have questions on the replay, anyone watching or replay now, leave them for me. I'll come back and check for those questions. Okay. Bye, y'all.